بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome everyone in today's class. This class is for the first secondary grade in English subject for the first semester. The lesson is Unit 3, Conversation Listening Vocabulary from the book Mega Goal 5, pages 38 and 39. It is prepared by Abdullah Hussein and presented by me, Mazen Harbi. So welcome everyone. Our objectives in today's lesson is number 1, to listen to a conversation between Edward and his grandmother. And also, we have a vocabulary, new vocabularies introduced in this lesson. And the last thing, the future, we will talk about the future of the newspaper. So the first question we have in today's lesson is, what do you think that this old lady is doing? What do you think this old lady is doing? Well, I believe it's obvious that this old lady is reading, okay? And there is something that we notice in this picture as well, which is, if you can see this electronic device, what do you think this one is? Well, I believe it's a device for to help people read, download their books or something. Okay, so yes, of course, it is an electronic book reader, or as they call it, an e-reader, and those readers became like a trend now. Most people use buy such devices just to lift the burden of having too many books. So do any of you use actually an e-reader? And what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And how many books can it hold? Okay, so since we're talking about e-reader, have any one of you used one? Okay, I'll speak for myself. I actually used one, and what do I like about it is that it is easy to read, okay, and there are like tens of books I can download and read whenever I want it, and I can highlight as well, okay. I don't have to collect books or something in some sort of cabinet, and to carry my books. No, I can download as many books as I would and put it here in this device and read it whenever I want it. But what I don't like about it is that well, it's not a book. To be honest, it's not a book. The feeling of holding a book is, of course, is priceless, and no one can make up for this. And the last thing, how many books can it hold? Well, as many as you can, and also it depends on the kind of device that you are holding, Okay, so now we're going to listen to a conversation, as we read, between Edward and his grandmother, and what they will talk about, what we just introduced, which is e-reader, and what actually the difference between e-reader and book, and does it make up for it or not. So we're going to play the audio.
Page 38. 4. Conversation.
Grandma, you've been lugging that book around all weekend.
If I want to read it, what choice do I have?
You can ditch the book and get an electronic book reader.
A what?
An electronic book reader. They're these great little devices that let you read books electronically. So you read on screen instead of on paper.
But I like reading on paper.
Trust me, Grandma. In a few years, no one is going to be reading books printed on paper anymore. Paper books will have disappeared.
I don't like all this new technology. I'm happy with things the way they are.
You really should check out ebook readers. One of the advantages is that you can buy, download, and start reading a book in minutes. Another great thing about it is that you can carry hundreds of books with you without it being heavy.
Why would I want to carry hundreds of books around with me?
Grandma, I'm sure if you just gave it a try, you'd find that you actually prefer it. Why not go with the flow?
I think this is all just a lot of hoopla. I've been reading my books on paper for 68 years, and I'm not about to change that now.
Interesting. So we just heard the conversation between Edward and his grandmother, and we see that Edward tried to convince his grandmother to use an e-reader instead of books, and he said that in the future no one will be using or reading books from based on paper. But she also introduced a very interesting thing, which is a very interesting point. She said that for more than 6 decades, for more than 60 years, she's reading books printed on paper, and this is actually shows that books are not easy to ditch. Books are not easy to use other devices instead of it. So books has its own value that has been proven through the years. Okay. Now we do have a couple of questions regarding the reading, the listening we just listened to. Number one, what does Edward want the grandmother to try? And as we explained, that he wants her to try the new e-reader instead of book. And what argument does he make? He said that no one will use it in the future, and it's also that it can lift the burden of having too many books. And is he successful in persuading grandmother? I don't think so, because she also gave a very reasonable point when she said that all her life she used a book used based on paper. So why she should change it now? And here we have the answers. I believe for this one, this is the answer we're looking for. What does Edward want the grandmother to try? He wants her to try reading on an electronic book reader, and the argument he makes that e-book readers can hold hundreds of books. You can buy the load and start reading a book in minutes. And also, once he's successful, he does not persuade his grandmother because she doesn't want to change. Okay. Now, if you notice, there are a couple of vocabularies that you notice in the listening, and now we're going to introduce some of these vocabulary and explain their meaning. So the first one here, what is something that you just like lugging around? I don't like lugging around all of my books during the day. They are so heavy. So lugging actually here is the word that we face in the listening text. It means carrying, especially something heavy or awkward. To carry something means to lug it. So this is what you mean by lugging. Okay. And next, welcome Ahmed to the class. Welcome. Next we have, what is something that you would like to ditch? The ditch is a word that we also face in this. We heard in this lesson. It says that, here an example, I would like to ditch my old laptop and get a new lighter one. So from this example, we can conclude that ditch means to leave something or to get rid of it. This is what we mean by ditch something. Okay. And next, one of the words actually also we heard is, when you go to the mall, what do you like to check out? What do you like to check out? For example, I always go to the video game store to check out what is new, okay? And to check out something, it means to look at it in order to evaluate it, okay? To check out something, it means you look at it, so you evaluate it and give it your final opinion. This is what we mean by check out. And next, Sometimes it is easier to go with the flow. Explain. So going to the flow, as we hear in this answer, I didn't want to go to watch a film last weekend, but everyone else did it. So I just went with the flow. Okay? So go with the flow means you just accept things. You do as most people do. So this is what doing go with the flow. It means do what most people do. And also, I believe this is the last one. Name a recent project that there has been a lot of hoopla about. And there was a lot of hoopla about the new video game, but it turns out to be not very good. So hoopla is actually means an excitement that's created by large amounts of publicity, okay, or propaganda on something that is when you see people are excited about something, any other or any kind of any project, okay, then mostly if it's not as you expected, then this you can call this situation a hoopla. Okay. Now, other listening tests we have. We're going to listen to the information about the future of newspapers, and then we're going to complete the chart with the advantages and disadvantages of each news format. Okay, so again, we're going to listen to the information about the future of newspapers, and then we're going to complete the chart with the advantages and disadvantages of each news format. So here we have this the listening task. So let us begin.
Page 39. 5. Listening. Listen to the information about the future of newspapers. Then complete the chart with the advantages and disadvantages of each news format.
Since the early 17th century, newspapers have had the same general format. The news has been printed in ink on paper. Then the newspapers have been circulated to a particular area. However, the Internet brought great change to the newspaper industry. To stay competitive, it became important to have an online presence. Today, most major newspapers around the world have an online version of their print paper. Online newspapers present some important advantages. For example, they can present up-to-the-minute news instead of having to wait to print the next edition of the paper. An advantage to the reader is that most online news sources are free. However, it seems almost certain that there are further changes ahead for the way newspapers are presented and sold. Most people in the newspaper industry feel that the next step will be electronic newspapers. Electronic newspapers would use technology related to today's electronic book readers. Like these readers, e-newspapers would use e-ink. Like a computer screen, e-ink has the ability to instantly refresh and change images. However, e-ink uses paper instead of a computer screen, so e-ink images look more like the images in actual books and newspapers. The electronic newspaper will have the look and feel of a print newspaper in other ways as well. It will be as large as the typical print newspaper, with a lightweight, portable screen that is flexible enough to be rolled or folded like a newspaper. The e-newspaper will combine these advantages of print newspapers with the advantages of online media, such as constant and instant updates, interactivity, and video capability. Replacing print newspapers with the e-newspapers will mean that newspaper companies would no longer have the enormous costs of printing, manufacturing, and delivering newspapers. This will mean tremendous savings. One newspaper publisher predicts, by 2030, we will have shifted to an electronic format, and we will have stopped printing paper newspapers completely. When that day comes, newspapers are going to go back to being the most important source of news to the public.
Interesting. So now we just listened to an audio that talked about the levels of how newspapers are produced, and he began with he talked about the printed newspaper and how it is replaced currently by online newspaper, and what is he expecting in the future with electronic newspaper. And he also presented some advantages and disadvantages regarding those regarding those newspapers. So let's all check them out. In print newspaper, he said that one of the advantages that it is large, it is lightweighted and portable. You can hold it with you whenever you go. And for all about the disadvantages for having print papers, it is not up to the minute. Okay, so you have to wait until the other day or for tomorrow until you get the news of today. Okay, this is what's wrong with the print newspaper. And also, it is not free. It is not free. So this is also can be a disadvantage. Okay, what replaces print newspaper is online newspaper. And the advantage of online newspaper is that it is free. It is the news are up to the minute. It means you get updated from the second for each news, and the interactive, the video capability. Okay, you're not only reading or seeing pictures. You can also watch videos regarding the news related, and this is what actually led to many newspaper agencies to actually have an online source for their newspaper. But the disadvantages of having online is that it needed a computer screen, and there are a lot of graphics. This is what, according to the text, is wrong or considered as a disadvantage in having an online newspaper. So in the future, they're looking for electronic newspaper that look more like paper than a computer screen. And one of the advantages has that large, lightweighted, portable, and saving huge savings because it will lift up the costs of printing and all of this. So it will be a huge savings for newspaper. So the listening predicts that in 2030, electronic newspaper will be kind of mixture between printed and online, and with electronic newspaper, the news will be the #1 source for each news around the world. Okay, and well, until that time, we'll see and figure see ourselves what are the disadvantages of such a technology or such a technique. So we reach the end of our lessons. Here are the summary of our lessons. We did listen to an interesting conversation regarding electronic readers between Edward and his grandmother, and then we learned some new vocabularies, and we read also to a listening test regarding the future of the newspapers.